Good evening. Today we are going to speak about very interesting topic, and today is our topic group-based education. In the previous video I was trying to explain what is problem-based learning, what is project-based learning, and indeed problem-based learning uses mostly collaborative learning formats as well as project-based learning. In the problem-based learning they use more group-based education. In the project-based learning they use more team-based education. And I explain you that in the group-based education most of the learners do almost the same task in the group. They discuss, they communicate, they research, they exchange the knowledge. While in the project-based learning they form a team. A team is very interactive and very collaborative group of learners who has very specific roles in the learning process. So the main difference between the group and the team is very organized and high level of collaboration is attained in the team-based education, and team members has very concrete learning roles or working roles in the process. So today we are going to speak up about the group, and the main questions are in the following: how big groups should be formed in the process of education, and how small groups can be formed in the process of education, and finally what is the optimal size of the group in the process of education. To my attitude, of course, the biggest group you can form for educational purposes is about up to 12 learners. So up to 12 learners is big group. The smallest group you can form in the process of education is at least 3 persons in the group. And what is the optimal size of the group? To my attitude and to my experience, it's about 5-6 pupils or students is optimal size of the group. Why? Because in the group-based learning and the learning processes in the group is ensured better when they are formed at this size, because they must maintain certain level of communication and discussion, collaboration. The certain level of exchange of knowledge should be maintained in the group-based learning. Also, they must be busy with the work. So the main criteria how big or how small groups should be formed. You must answer first, what are they going to do? If the task is really complicated and big with a bigger number of learning objects, of course you can form even bigger groups, because every member of the group must be busy with a certain work in the process. And any of passive attitude or passive manner of work is not tolerated in the group-based learning. That's why teacher or facilitator should be taken into account before they're forming the group for educational purposes. So what is important in the group? And that of course predestines the size of the group. Important that every learner have a voice in the group and has an ability and opportunity to say his or her opinion. Ignorance is not tolerated in the group. Every group member should be active. So every group member should have a voice, and every member should be proactive. So he needs to have ability to speak. He needs a clear motivation to speak and to express his own thoughts concerning the learning process and learning objects. Also, what is not tolerated in the group-based education or learning during the learning process in the group, domination of particular member, also not a good sign of education process. Every group member should be active equally. So this is very important. Domination is not a very good sign of the group work, as well as ignorance of the participants, also not good sign in the group work. So facilitator, before the forming of the group, he should take into account the complexity of tasks. He should collect the different kinds and different persons who will be able to communicate and teach each other in the group-based education. This is very important. Therefore, wise facilitators and teachers appoints certain cognitive mentors in the group, who is also kept as a leader in the group, who helps to facilitate group-based learning more easily. So as you see, if you want to decide what size of the group you should have in the classroom, you should answer all those questions very clearly. What kind of the task you are going to give to the learners? How complex the task? More difficult task, more complex task, more bigger groups should be formed adequately. In the bigger groups, it's really very recommended to appoint cognitive mentor or leader of the group who could help to facilitate all the work, because facilitator or teacher is not able to observe all the work that is going on in the group. So group leader in the bigger group size is really a very relevant. For the small groups, of course, you can form small groups if the task is given to the group is not difficult, it's not complex. Basically speaking, why the group work is important? Because group of learners and grouping in learning process, that means that in the classroom or in auditorium, lecturer or teacher creates small communities. 33. In the classroom or auditorium, teacher or lecturer creates small communities. That means that in the small communities, in the groups, they not only learn the subject, they not only learning to certain things about the academical issue, but they learning to cooperate and they learning to communicate to each other, and that's the main point to work in the groups, to have better socialization skills in terms of communication and collaboration.